Boston, Crockett's Victory Garden.
Welcome to Crockett's Victory Garden. I'm Jim Crockett. And if daffodils are a sign of springtime, then you know what time of year it is here in Crockett's Victory Garden. Today is the day that we're going to sow some peas. I'm going to install some supports for peas called pea brush. I'm going to plant some parsnips. I'm going to lay out a new perennial garden. And I'm going to show you how to get a head start in planting your melons, your cucumbers, and okra. The first thing that we're going to plant today is parsnips. You know what the parsnips look like a sort of an oversized carrot with a sort of a wedge-shaped white root, very sweet flavored and delicious, provided that that plant is growing in a nice sandy loam, a soil without rocks or clay, because in those kinds of soils, the roots fork and also they get what we call hairy. They get little added roots on the side. Well, we have rocky soil here in Crockett's Victory Garden, and if you have rocky or clay soil, let me introduce you to a way to grow parsnips without any trouble. Get a pipe, in this case I have an old-fashioned crowbar. Simply stick that in the ground and rotate it so that you end up making a hole about 18 inches deep, because those parsnips have one beautiful long taproot. Now that looks like a great big place for a great big ice cream cone in there. I'm going to put in 3 of them just to demonstrate how that's done. And make a pretty good sized hole. And then we're going to fill in that those holes with some really good soil. Now in my case, I have here a mixture of 1/3 compost, and you've heard of my compost from the compost pile, and 2/3 soil. Well, now those roots, you see those parsnips start growing in there. They'll just have a very happy situation. I must tell you that parsnips are a crop which about like that. Parsnips take a long time to mature. And they can grow right up until the very ground freezes in the fall, and we're going to actually allow these to stay in the ground over winter and harvest them in the spring, because the flavor is best at that time of year, after they have been frozen. Well, the parsnips would want to go in roughly a half-inch deep. Parsnip seed, by the way, is usually good for 1 year only. So if you have old parsnip seeds, you might as well throw them away. I'm growing here an English variety called White Gem, which we've grown before and found to be very satisfactory. All we'll do here is just drop in, just a few seeds, 3 or 4. Oh, that's a lot too many. Just put a few more over like that. Now it'll take roughly 21 days for these to break ground. By that time, if your garden is like mine, there'll be weeds coming up all over here, and you'll wonder now which are which, and can I actually cultivate here, or if I do, will I ruin those seedlings about to come up? So what I do, every place that I plant for a hill of parsnips, I put in 2 or 3 radish seeds. Now those radishes will be up inside of 4 or 5 days, and then I can cultivate to my heart's content. We cover these over about a half-inch deep, pat them down good and firmly. We'll have parsnips. We'll know where the weeds are. We'll have a few radishes in there also. Now the next vegetable we want to talk about is Jerusalem artichoke. Now you may have heard of the Jerusalem artichoke under the name sunchoke. It's an all-America wildflower. Gets up to be 8 feet tall. In October, September and October, it'll be 8 feet tall with real yellow sunflower blossoms. But what I'm looking for are not the blossoms, but these roots. This is the Jerusalem artichoke. It's not a true artichoke, it's not from Jerusalem, but it is delicious to eat, and it is prolific in the garden. From one little piece, such as this, a year ago, We planted one about the size of an egg and harvested 10 pounds of roots. Very, very good production. Now, they're so tough that they'll grow anywhere. But with a little tender, loving care, you can really, really get production out of them. Now, what I'm going to do is take this little section here, not over 30 inches wide, between the back of my compost bin and the back fence, and simply use a piece of the garden which otherwise would go completely, be completely lost. Cover them over about an inch or two over the top like that. Set them a foot and a half apart. They'll come up, and as a matter of fact, they'll come up so well that next year or this fall when you dig them, you'll find that there will be, others will come up next spring. You can't catch all of them. Well, the next thing we're going to talk about are peas. And I want you to see that I have here 2 rows of peas with 3 different varieties of peas in each row. Now, I'll tell you something about the varieties, and tell you also that were it not for the label, I couldn't tell which variety was which at this stage in the game. Now, can you tell where these? I know that the label belongs in that hole right there. And on this side, we have a variety called Frosty. On the other side is one called Little Marvel. Now, Little Marvel only grows 12 to 15 inches tall. By the time I pull some soil in around this, the plants will be practically self-supporting. Now, the Frosty is going to grow about 2.5 feet tall. And so back here, we're going to have some kind of support. And on back here again, a variety called Green Arrow, which grows about 30 inches tall. We are also going to have to have support. Now, we have other varieties, one called Trio, and we have an Oregon sugar pea in here, which will grow 4 feet tall. Again, if you don't put in support, what happens is that these vines begin to flop over on the side. You find yourself stepping on them. Not only that, you will find that when it rains, the pods will get muddy. Then this botrytis disease will set in, and you just will have a messy looking garden and also poor production. Now, there's 2 or 3 ways that you can support the peas. I think that perhaps you may have been doing some pruning in your own garden. If you do, just take some of these clippings like this. This is the finest kind of support for peas. Ordinary brush, because these plants cling by tendrils, and the tendrils will come up and grab right onto those stalks, onto these little branches, I should say. But just keep putting them in. They don't have to be very close together because the peas will reach out and grab them. Now, I want to see other kinds of support that you can get. One, you can buy some netting, some plastic netting. Now, I find that's usually good for about one use, because by the time the tendrils get all through them, they're pretty messy. Another thing that you can use to reuse again and again is a chicken wire. Now, this small chick wire, you do have to pull the vines off, but nevertheless, they will cling. One thing that you don't want to be afraid of is this. You may have heard that the tendrils or the plants will be burned by clinging to a metal fence. Don't you believe it? It just doesn't happen. You can grow them on a metal fence and they'll do beautifully. Now we're going to plant some peas. Now, this is, I might say, almost a challenge planting around this part of the country here in Boston area. Farther north, it's a great time to plant peas. And in the cooler summers, you can plant them, in cooler areas, you can plant them way late into June. The variety I'm going to plant is the Oregon sugar pea. Now, this is the one which you think of as the Chinese pea pod that you get in a Chinese restaurant. So sweet and delicate. The seeds, like this. I want to show you that I moisten these seeds. First of all, we'll just drop a few seeds in here and moisten them, because I'm going to put on the seeds a legume inoculant. You may have heard me say this before, but it's extremely important that these peas be allowed to extract free, and that is, I mean, when I say free, without any dollar signs involved, nitrogen from the atmosphere. The pea trench, you see, is about 6 or 8 inches wide. It's about 4 inches deep at this stage. And we'll just drop these peas in here. You probably can't see them because they have this black material on them, which matches the color of the soil quite well. Anyway, we'll put them in here rather thickly, not over, I would say the closest ones would be 2 inches apart. Then we'll drop these in, and then we'll cover these over with about 1 inch of soil, like so. If you want them to grow, you must firm them down. Use your hoe, pat them down very firmly. I have another trick on planting peas from my friend in England, Peter Seabrook, who has a garden similar to mine. He says in England, they often sow peas in little containers indoors to get them started. Now this happens to be a peat pot. You notice what I'm doing. I'm peeling away the top of this so that it won't act as a wick to draw moisture up and be lost. The pods, the roots are coming through the bottom. Crush this a little bit to help them through. Now you see how quickly we can get a row of peas started. All we do here, they don't have to be peat pots. You can use ordinary flower pots if you want to. Set them in like this, fill them in, and you can see you could very soon have your peas growing. All right, the next vegetable today is kohlrabi. And kohlrabi is a cabbage relative whose swollen stem is the part that's edible. And it's a fast-growing thing, related to the cabbage family and the radish family. Seeds look like radishes. This is a variety called Early Purple Vienna. I'm going to just drop a pinch of seeds, 4 or 5 of them, about every 8 or 9 inches along the row. Couldn't be anything easier than that as far as planting them is concerned. Now what we will do is we'll save the strongest seedling at each one of these spots. Cover them over just like so. Give these a drink of water. In a few days they'll be up and growing. What we will do is save only the strongest plant, and when that little kohlrabi stem has gotten to be about the size of a small apple, we will then harvest it, slice it, saute it. Very, very good. It doesn't taste like cabbage. It has a flavor of its own. You've probably seen it in seed catalogs and just never thought, well, I just won't ever get around to it. Well, the next thing we want to get around to today is laying out a perennial garden. And I must talk to you first of all about the fact that this year I am going to talk more about flowers than we have previously. We will have vegetables, but we're going to have an accent on flowers because I know there's a tremendous appreciation of flowers, and especially of perennials, because perennials have the ability to live for years and years and years, to multiply, to blossom at different times of the season, and they're the first things out of the ground in the spring. Really makes you know that a new year has arrived. If you're going to plant perennials, then the first thing that you ought to do is to make a design which incorporates what you need in your garden. In our instance, we have a central path. We want low-growing plants in the front. We'd like something that will blossom as long as we possibly can. We can have something a little taller here, something still taller in the background, and the rest is going to be vegetables. So all the way up this path, you'll see why I have chosen what I have chosen. Also, you'll see that after having made the design on paper, I took bone meal, which is one of the very nicest fertilizers for perennials, and made a path for each, a little segregation area for each one of these. And we talk about varieties. In the front, I'm going to have a silver mound artemisia. lovely, soft, gray foliage. Blossoms are not important, but the foliage is great. Will kind of hide some of this ugly wood. Next to it is the Carpathian harebell. Again, you see the difference in the color and size and texture of the foliage. This Carpathian harebell will grow about 4 inches tall, and then 6 or 8 inches above that will be large blue flowers, or white ones according to the variety, during the summer. Behind it, we have some Chinese delphinium. Again, a plant which grows 18 to 24 inches tall for small, dark, light blue or white flowers. Behind it, some sweet william. Now this is a biennial. We started these from seeds last July. See those big rugged plants? These are very costly to buy. You can start them in your own garden if you'd like to. Once these have went through blossoming in mid-June, I'll plant chrysanthemums in that same spot, which will blossom in September and October. Next to this, in the front, a type of fringed bleeding heart. Now, a bleeding heart is certainly a long season type of plant. Never grow much taller than it is right now. These lovely pink flowers during the summer. Behind it, we have the threadleaf coreopsis. Now, that might be something that you like to look at. The threadleaf coreopsis, a rather unusual variety, blossoms during the months from June to August, grows 18 inches tall, bright yellow flowers. And then behind it, we have this one called the Kansas gayfeather. Now, the Kansas gayfeather will blossom at the same time, only it'll have purple flowers. Now, the yellow and purple together will be a nice contrast. Here we have in the very foreground some plants of English daisies. They haven't begun their growth yet because it's still been too cold, but these will be a short flower with pink, a short plant, pink or white or red flowers for a long period this summer. Behind it, painted daisies, again, a medium-sized one. Behind here, some more of our plants we grew from seed. This is the Canterbury bell. The bells are about 1.5 inches long. Great spires of bells in blue and white and pink. They'll go in this area. We have in here a plant of bee balm, a red-flowered one, which we took from the perennial garden. Now, I am going to show you how the perennials grow. We're going to move over to the perennial garden and get a plant for this one, for this little area called the Shasta daisy. Now, the Shasta daisy was developed by Luther Burbank, named for Mount Shasta in California. This was one little plant last spring. It's made a good size growth. I have to put my foot on the spade. Those roots are pretty solid. Now we'll just take a section out of here. This is, again, one of the nice things about the perennials is they multiply. You can put them in other parts of your garden, share them with your friends. Okay. We'll take this little Shasta daisy. I'll get some of these things out of the way here. And the Shasta daisy will go right in here. Now the Shasta will be white, contrasted with the red bee balm beside it. Now you should, I'm sure that you're looking at this soil and saying, gee, that soil looks good. Well, it is good. This is the same kind of soil we have for our vegetables. There's peat moss and leaf mold. There's lime in here so that the pH is about 6.5. We have, I know that these plants are going to grow, and if you prepare your soil properly, almost anything will grow. If you don't prepare your soil properly, I can say heaven help you, because things simply will not grow. Well, you can see again in the front we have some of our pansies we're going to put in. We're going to put some alpine strawberries down here on the corner. But I think you have an idea that we're going to have a perennial garden here. But for the moment, we're going to move in the greenhouse, and I'm going to talk to you about starting those melons and cucumbers and okra. And I couldn't help but show you first of all one of my favorite plants called an orchid cactus. Now, I wanted to show it to you today because it's just now coming into blossom. It is not an orchid, nor is it a desert cactus. It's a jungle cactus. In the natural habitat in Central America, this grows up in the crotches of trees. Well, we have this, comes in pinks and reds and whites and various colors. Excellent plant, easy to grow. I certainly hope you'll have orchid cactus. One of these days, I'm going to do a whole show on houseplants, one of my favorite subjects. But now we're going to talk about starting some of these plants ahead of time. Now, the first one we're going to show you is a cantaloupe. I'm choosing a variety called Burpee's Ambrosia. It's only one of many very, very good types of cantaloupes or muskmelons. The secret is to use some flower pots. These happen to be peat pots, but they could be ordinary clay or plastic pots. Put 2 seeds in each pot, like so. Now, both of them will probably grow, but one will be just a little bit stronger than the other. And when they come up, you choose the strongest one and cut off the other one, so that you have one strong plant growing in each of these pots. When the temperature outdoors gets to be 60 degrees, then these can be moved, but they will be a month old at that time and so tall. They move right out and you get a month of growing season. Next one we're going to put in is cucumbers, a variety called Satakoi. These are green because they have a fungicide on them which keeps the seed from rotting in the soil. This is not the normal color of the seed itself. Put in 2 seeds, poke them in the ground a ½ inch deep, save the stronger of the seedling. We do the same thing for okra, and then we have them off and growing. Now, on my plant clinic today, I'm going to talk to you about a Gloxinia. And I can very well recall the day, must be 40 years ago, when someone said to me, I had a beautiful Gloxinia, and when it stopped blossoming though, but I kept watering it, and I've kept feeding it, and it gets smaller every day. Well, this is what's happened here. Here is a plant which has been watered and fed and not allowed to rest. A Gloxinia must go through a period in which the leaves die away completely and the plant rests completely without moisture. Now, after this resting period, it will start new growth all by itself. Then it's time to take the tuba, which is underneath here, plant it in fresh soil, give it a drink of water. In a short time, you have a plant like that. Well, that's mighty encouraging. You can see all those nice new leaves and new growth coming. These are related to African violets, but they don't grow continuously. They must have a rest period. Well, now they'll go on from there. Move this thing right out of my way a minute. Pretty soon, in a period from the time the new growth starts, in a period of about 4 months, your plant now looks like this one. Now you can see all 3 of them lined up here. This one is now sending out its flower buds, already popping right in here. Following that one, to show you what the payoff is going to be, here we have the final Gloxinia. Now that plant will stay in blossom for a period of, I would say at least 3 or 4 weeks. There are a lot of flower buds coming along on it, and it makes a house plant which will easily live for 20 years, and I've heard of people who've had them for as much as 50 years. So you can have a great deal of encouragement from this, but now I must get to answering a few questions today. The first one comes from close by in Brookline, Massachusetts. Dear Jim, last year and again this year, the blossoms on the beautiful magnolias along Beacon Street and Commonwealth Avenue in Boston were ruined by a late frost. How can I prevent this kind of injury? The secret is to try to keep the plant cool. So you plant it in a place where it is exposed to the winds and not up close to a building as they are in Boston. They get reflected heat from the building, they blossom too early, and bing, the frost gets them. So plant them at the north side of your house or where there's a good wind circulation. My seed potatoes arrived sprouted. What can I do? Well, you're very lucky. You can see where the eyes are. Put them right out in the in the sunshine and let those sprouts continue to grow until the time you're ready to plant them. You'll have some good sprouts there, which will show you where the eyes are. From New York, I have a coffee tree about 9 inches high. It was doing fine, but lately the bottom leaves have been turning brown and dying. What am I doing wrong? Probably your plant is a little starved for both food and moisture. What I would say is to shift it to a larger flower pot. Eventually it'll probably have to be in a 10 or 12 inch pot because they grow to be 3 or 4 feet tall in the house. They will have blossoms which are very fragrant, white blossoms. They're fleeting, but they're followed by coffee beans, and that ought to mean something, the price of coffee. From New Jersey, last fall a large oak tree was taken down on our property and we have a large pile of wood chips. Can these be used as a mulch for the garden or only for acid-loving plants? I wouldn't put them in my garden because they would be very slow to break down. They would be good in a wildflower garden, they're good as a garden path or as a mulch under rhododendrons or almost anything except an annual vegetable garden. I have this one from West Virginia. I have a problem with my silver mound artemisia. They start out well, but after 2 months they begin to die back, usually from the center outwards. How can I prolong their beauty? Well, you saw that I'm going to plant some in the front of my garden. What we should do is, if they start to die back like that, cut them back to the ground level. Inside of 3 or 4 days, they'll be right up and making new growth again, and they will stay pretty way up late into the fall. I have a question from Webster, New York. I have a mountain ash with a bad case of fire blight. Is there any cure? No, there isn't. I would get rid of it and get rid of it quickly because fire blight will spread to hawthorns and pear trees and other members of the rose family. I have a zebra plant. This is from Illinois. That every time it gets a new leaf, one of the bottom leaves falls off. Your plant probably is not getting enough light or enough moisture. They're not easy to grow, but they can be grown. Well, they say that that's all the time I have for this week. Next week, we're going to plant potatoes. I'm going to show you how to start some chrysanthemums that will blossom in your own garden in September and October and November. I'm going to plant some window boxes and show you some special hints on that. I'm Jim Crockett in Crockett's Victory Garden, and I hope you enjoy the program every week.